So talk to me first about what do you think the self-defense claim is like here, given that the state's argument is that they were retreating. He went inside the house, got the AR-15, all the shots were from behind, and therefore, in fact, lost his stand your ground. We'll get into that in a minute. What do you think so far of the defense?
Yeah, one of the witnesses, Bob, said it all happened pretty quickly, but there's actually a lot there to unpack because four guys show up in a car in the driveway, and the point of all the text back and forth is to demonstrate that they were bad actors, that they were there to threaten and maybe to harm the defendant. And the one guy says, I wrote he was a dead man walking to try to calm down my sister. That makes no sense, right? I'm just saying he's a dead man walking, calm down anyone or diffuse the situation. So that's why all of that evidence is there. They're in the driveway. They're not classic victims. They are bad actors there for bad reasons, and that sets up the self-defense question. But then you still have the other issue you raise, which is he went back in his house, got a weapon, came back outside and fired at them, apparently as they were leaving. So even if you buy that they were there in the first instance for bad reasons, there still may be an issue with this self-defense claim.
Yeah, Tyler, I mean, that's an excellent breakdown. I mean, from a legal point of view, is there a good point to say these were bad actors and at a minimum possibly get a juror that just says, you know what, just one, because it's all they need, or some sort of jury nullification that says, under these circumstances, this defendant has been a law-abiding person, clean person, athletes, done everything right, and now these guys are coming after him. We just can't see ourselves to bring a conviction here.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with Tyler's analysis here. I mean, on the facts themselves, I think this case is pretty close as to whether or not you would call it self-defense. But there are two things that stand out in the defendant's favor. One, he did a good job testifying, and those victims, I agree, did not. The girlfriend/sister presented poorly, her brother presented poorly, and the defendant presented very well. So that's one thing in his factor. The other thing in his factor, Bob, that you just mentioned is the burden of proof. It's the prosecution's burden. They're the ones who have to persuade every juror beyond a reasonable doubt. And those two facts combined, where you like the witnesses on the defense better and the prosecution have the burden, that spells trouble for the prosecution.
Yeah, and I think a lot has to do with where you are, what kind of jury pool that you have. We're human beings. We have adrenaline pumping. It's not just the static moment by moment thing as it comes out in court that way, but a multitude of things that are happening at one time. Do you think the defense has enough to sum up to that?
I think the defense did a pretty good job because, again, I agree with Tyler. The defendant's testimony was very good. He was very believable. He didn't exaggerate at all. He didn't go overboard. But I also think he's really helped by the testimony of his brother and the testimony of his mother. Don't forget Mom. Mom was there. Mom was scared. She was scared too. And the brother was in danger. And that really helps the defendant because it's not just about self-defense. It's not just about protecting himself. It's about protecting his family and putting on that family in succession, one after another. All did a great job testifying. All of their stories were consistent. I think it was a strong showing by the defense.
Okay, does the defense have a problem here by the fact that they were on their way into the car and leaving the scene? Like, for example, Richard, just to put a fine point on it, maybe while the altercation is happening and if weapons are pulled out is one thing, but does that substantially change when those people are fleeing the house?
Yeah, that's exactly the nub of this case and why it's a difficult question, because he didn't have the gun on him and he didn't shoot it during the fight. He went back in the house, got his weapon, came back outside, and that's why stand your ground doesn't apply, and then shot at the car as they were fleeing and shot 39 times. And a juror could decide, I'm with you, that he was trying to defend himself initially, but now he's got a gun. Now they're leaving. There's no reason to be shooting. That is not self-defense. He is no longer reasonably trying to protect himself, reasonably trying to protect his brother, because the imminent danger is over. They're on their way out of there. That's what a jury could decide. And the defense is trying to show that this all happened so fast that you can't parse it like that. It's all one thing. It's an act of self-defense. It's too quick to try to separate the components.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think the defense is going to have a problem here in the respect that there's consciousness of activity of going to get the gun and then using it. Do you think, we talked about jury makeup, do you think that even if jurors go into that jury room and say, well, technically, they were no longer the aggressors, do you think there's a possibility here that this kind of testimony pushes at least one juror to say, you know what, under these circumstances, I'm not destroying this good family?
Yes. I mean, you began this discussion, Bob, by talking about the power of putting a defendant's mother on the stand in the abstract. And I'll just say the mom effect here is huge, because the minute you put on the mother of a defendant, you change the way the jury thinks about that individual. He's no longer just an NFL player or a guy with a gun or a guy who got into a fight with his girlfriend. He's the son of a mother, and a very likable, very credible, Bible-studying mother who is here to testify in his defense. And somebody on that jury in the back of their mind is thinking, am I going to put her son in prison for a long period of time? Am I going to do that to that woman? You get all kinds of stuff building up like that when you put a mother on the stand. And her testimony was great. It was well done and very powerful, by the way, that the girlfriend called the mother and said, I'm sending over my brother to basically to kill him. I mean, that's huge testimony. What was she doing?